What is going on, Pokemon collectors? Welcome back to my channel. Link Light here with another Pokemon video. On today's video, it's another Shiny Cardboard Chronicles episode because let's face it, I like Shiny Cardboard and you like Shiny Cardboard too. We will be covering the rest of the Holos from the 2000 Pokemon Neo Genesis set. Holo number 9 is Lugia, and this Lugia was illustrated by Yoshida. This is actually the first ever Lugia Pokemon card in the Pokemon TCG in a regular set, such an iconic card. I did not pull this as a kid. Let me know in the comments, did you have a chance of pulling this Lugia as a kid? The first edition PSA 10 pop of this Lugia is currently 45, and that 45 in that PSA 10 first edition is out of 6,701. Now we know this is one of the most expensive cards in the Neo era. According to PSA and this graph, the last sold was for around $146,400. And the average price for this Lugia in the first edition in PSA 10, according to PSA, is $56,700. Let me know in the comments, do you think this price is too much or is just right for this iconic Lugia card? Now, for the regular edition of Lugia, has a PSA 10 pop of 15, and that 15 is out of, check this out, 11,536. And because there's only 15 PSA 10 Holos, even though it's a regular edition, I couldn't get any data according to PSA. Let me know in the comments, what would you price this iconic card in a PSA 10? Even though it's not a first edition, it only has a PSA 10 pop of 15. So let me know in the comments, what would you price this Lugia in a PSA 10? Holo number 10 is Magnium, and this card was illustrated by Sugimori. The PSA 10 pop of this card in a first edition is currently 22, and that 22 is out of 1,973. Now, if we look at the chart, the most recent price for this card was sold in a first edition PSA 10 at $37,000. And the average price for this card in a first edition PSA 10 is currently $17,000. Let me know, do you think this card is justified for the price that it's selling at right now? Now, for the regular edition of Magnium, this has a PSA 10 pop of only 9. Yes, I said only 9. And that 9 is out of 1,648. And again, because the PSA 10 pop is so low, again, it's a regular edition, but it has a very low PSA 10 pop. Let me know in the comments, what would you pay for this card in a PSA 10? Me personally, I'll let you know once you guys let me know in the comments. Holo number 11 is this Magnium, and this is actually the second card in this Pokemon set, and this was illustrated by Sugimori. The PSA 10 pop of this card in first edition is currently 92, and that 92 is out of 2,046. Now let's look at the graph. According to PSA, the most recent price was sold at around $4,100. And the average price of this card in a first edition PSA 10, according to this graph and data, is about $1,800. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of this card and the prices that are shown right now? Now, for Magnium in the regular Holo PSA 10, it has a pop of currently 26, and that 26 is out of 1,865. Now let's look at the graph. The average price for this card is currently $1,400, and the last sold was around $2,600. Let me know in the comments, what do you think on the data for this Magnium Pokemon card? Holo number 12 is one of the most iconic Pokemon cards. If you're not too familiar, in Neo Genesis, we got introduced to some baby Pokemon cards, and this Pichu is probably one of the most iconic cards. I actually pulled one, not a first edition, but I actually pulled one. This Pichu Pokemon card was illustrated by none other than, let me let you guess. Yes, it was by Sugimori. The PSA 10 pop of Pichu in a first edition is currently 37, and that 37 is out of 3,404. Let's look at the data. According to PSA, the last sold for this Pokemon card is around $38,500, and the average price is currently around 14K. But check this out. According to PSA, these are the last couple of sales. We had 55, 55,000, then we had 56,000, and then it dropped back down to 38,000. So let me know in the comments, do you think it's still a little overpriced? Or let me know, what do you think? Maybe the market's correcting itself. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Now, for the regular version of this Pichu, it has a PSA 10 pop of 21, and that 21 is out of 3,271. Now, of course, let's look at the data. According to PSA, the last sold was around 17K. And the average price for this card, even though it's an unlimited regular version, it has an average price in a PSA 10 of about 3K. Let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on this data and this Pokemon card Pichu? Holo number 13 is Skarmory, and Skarmory was illustrated by Sycamore. Now, in a first edition of PSA 10, the PSA 10 pop is 59, and that 59 is out of 2,407. According to this graph, the average price of his card is around $1,400, and the last sold was about $4,080. Let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on the prices for this card? Now, of course, for the regular edition of Skarmory, it has a PSA 10 pop of 23, and that 23 is out of 1,811. If we look at the chart next to me, the most recent sold for this card in a regular edition PSA 10 was around $1,600, and the average price for this card is looking at about $600. Let me know your thoughts on this Pokemon card in the comments. What do you think on these prices?